come on, Guzzlers, I won the lottery. Not the big lottery, the People's Postcode Lottery. And it weren't the big prize, but it's a prize. And actually, although I quite often win the odd like £10 prizes, this is the second time I've won like this, where they go, you can pick a gift, and they give you a list of things you can pick. I got a roasting dish last time, nice white porcelain one. This time, apart from all the flowery aprons and things like that, they had some Pyrex stuff. So I've got myself a nice Pyrex bowl. So there you go. Well, lottery winner. Good excuse to celebrate. And what better to celebrate than with a nice Spanish dish. No idea what the connection is, but we're going Spanish tonight. We're having squid with onions. Ooh, that sounds exciting. That's not the wife's voice, that's my voice. We're having Spanish calamari in onion sauce. Now, they're not actually Spanish calamari. I think they come from India. The onions didn't come from Spain, I don't think. But they're onions. Squid to squid. And, got to try and say this right, we are having calamares encebollados. I'll try and say it again later and I probably won't. Okay. Squid in onions. So I've made a bit of a start. Not a lot, admittedly. I just peeled one onion. You want 2 onions. Medium size onions. These are quite large, but don't matter. Okay, and we're going to be thinly slicing them up. And then we're going to be putting some garlic into it. Whole clove of garlic. Actually, a clove of garlic. I was thinking it was a whole bulb. There might be more than one clove going in though. So the onion is going to be thinly sliced, and the garlic we're going to sort of chop up roughly. Okay, just trying to peel some of this. Wants to peel and some doesn't. These are these nice white onions, meant to be a little bit sort of sweeter. So you want some garlic, you want onions, and you want some olive oil, which we're going to fry it all up in. Now, obviously, if you're doing it traditionally, it would be Spanish olive oil. What do you say? Oh, God knows where this one's from. Tesco's. They're Spanish, aren't they? Well, there you go. We'll pretend there. You want a little bit of vegetable broth, about 120 odd mils, and about the same amount of white wine, which is currently chilling in the fridge. You don't want it chilled for this, but you will want it chilled for what you're going to have left over, aren't you? You want some nice smoky Spanish paprika, some saffron, some salt and pepper, some flat leaf parsley garnish, and obviously your squid. Now the recipe I'm following is from Spain on a Fork by Albert, I think Albert. He says use 3 large squid tubes. Now, when I went to get my squid, unfortunately, I was very restricted, and best I could do was frozen, which it normally is anyway. But the tubes looked to me like they'd been a bit defrosted and refrozen a few times. So I've got squid rings. If you do it with tubes, we'd make some of them into rings, some of them into squares, just to add a little bit of variety. Might chop some of them up, who knows. And that's it really. So, let me finish peeling my garlic. Now this is a traditional dish, a squid in a traditional Spanish dish. It is also actually found, a very similar one, in Ecuador. Not quite sure what the connection there is. But this dish of squid cooked in onions and garlic is usually flavoured with bay leaves, except our one doesn't, and parsley. And we're having parsley, but that's more of a garnish rather than cooked into it. Now, when I first saw this recipe, it was like, oh, you're going to do this and you're going to cook it for all this amount of time. And I'm thinking, hang on. If you overcook squid, it goes chewy. And no one likes chewy squid. But apparently, what are you doing over there? Get back here. But apparently, when you like fry squid, like when you're making calamari, that in England, most people associate calamares as in like fried squid rings, if you like, in breadcrumbs or something like that, or in batter. If you do that, the cooking time is important, because you overcook them that way, when you deep fry them, they will go rubbery. However, if you cook them sort of slowly, sort of braise them, if you like, in a lot more like a stew, do a lot of that in a minute, do a bit on that as well. Then they don't go like that. Well, we'll find out, won't we? So I've got my nice hex-clad pan, hairy mica pan. I'm just going to get that mess out of the way, and then we'll get the oil heating. You're going to want about 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Let's add the oil. Do. Get rid of that, and now we're going to put that pan on a medium-ish heat. Okay, and we'll get that up temperature. Let me get me. Where's it gone? There it is, hiding over there. Get me scraper. Be easier to get me onion and garlic up in a minute. Oh, that's my Chinese chopper in there. He must have fingers. Oh, and there's my tongs trying to just be a pain in the arse. Now, I'm telling you, you know, we think in England, we call them onions, starting to get the eye stinging now. That took their time. You know, in England, like I said, we tend to associate calamari as being squid, which it is, but a particular type of squid, or cooked certainly. But squid or calamari, it cooked sort of world over, really. And although we're talking about cooking it, somewhere like Korea and Japan, they often have it raw. Now, I wouldn't suggest you have these raw, because they were caught in India, supposedly frozen straight away. We're talking more about squid that has been, bit of me, these all coming out of here. Squid that's obviously freshly caught, a bit like having sushi. Obviously, you need it as fresh as possible and do it that way. Right, I think that's coming up temperature. So at this point, I'm just going to start chucking in my onions. Now, there is a lot of onions, but just remember, this is squid in onions. I do think, actually, to be honest, I've probably got more onion here than squid. So perhaps it should be onion and squid sauce, but we'll see. Okay, and at this point, I'm now just going to roughly chop the garlic, and when we've done that, we'll be adding that. I've just remembered, of course, this can be served as a tapas. Equally, it can be served as a main course with stuff like roasted potato, you know, Spanish roasted potatoes with it or something like that. I don't need that anymore. Go in there. But we're not. Oh, and then you want a nice pinch of sea salt there. Straight off the beaches of Spain. Malden sea salt. So I presume it comes from Malden in England, but who knows. Yeah, so you can have this as a tapas. We're not. And so I was saying, remembered, we had got some tapas, i.e. some nice chorizo again. So I'm just chopping that up, because like I said to my wife, do you want some chorizo? No, or chorizo, like we said. Because I forgot. She said, oh yes please. didn't say quite as deep as that, but there you go. I'm being very careful not to be naughty. And do it in that voice that she tells us to. So, there is a little dish for my beloved. And then there's a bit left for me. Now, we're just going to sort of keep mixing this. Obviously we want to get all them onions coated in that oil, and we want to start the sautéing going on. You want to be careful. I was a bit surprised how soon you put the garlic in, because I know you obviously want to get the flavour out, but we don't want to happen is the garlic burning. So just need to keep an eye on it, little mix or so, and so we're just going to do that for about 5 minutes. Whew, that tree salt has got a bit of a kick to it. Might need something to cool my mouth down. That might have to go on the back burner. I might have to get that white out. Now I made a little cock up. What I meant was, I said we're going to cook it like this for about 5 minutes. Essentially, what we're actually going to do is cook it for about 15 to 20 minutes, and every sort of 5 minutes or so, or a bit sooner if you think it needs it. We're just going to keep turning it over. We want to cook those onions because remember, I think we said before, we often sort of flash cook onions and you're not really properly cooking them. Or you might be cooking them enough, but not enough if you want to basically get them flavours out. Well, not that way, no. So, really there's not much more we can prepare. Now, what I did say to you is if you were cutting your squid tubes up, what he suggested is you took one of the tubes, you know, and cleaned out the thing inside the pen, and chop it into rings, and the other cut it flat and then cut it into squares, just basically to add a little bit of texture. Now I thought about chopping up some of them squid rings. I might not, I don't know. But they're ready to go. That's burning my mouth up. Well, that's it. Where's the word calamari come from? It comes from Italian. That is spicy. She said, oh, I bought the spicy one. I didn't think it would be quite that spicy. Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir. Off from Spain. Some of that's going to be going in there. Some of that is calling back then. So I said, word of calamari comes from the Italian word calamari, the Spanish calamar, and the modern Greek calamari. To be honest, first time I really come across calamari was probably in Greece. Anyway, they all derive from the Latin, which I'm assured, even though I used to say to my Italian friend, because I learnt Latin at school, got a Latin O-level, didn't do very well on it. That's a whole new story. My teacher, Mr. Edwards, thoroughly disappointed with me. Many years later, he turned out to be one of the tutors in the teacher training programme, and I met him again. He was talking to me by then. Well, I think I was one of his star pupils in Latin. But I think he dropped an exam. I've got an E. Which back then was not a C. A pass grade was a C and above. A D and an E were considered not passes. They were grades, but not pass grades. Nowadays, write your name right and you get a bloody, oh, you passed. Disgusting. And I am a teacher, or ex-teacher, so before anybody kicks off. Anyway, these are starting to go nice and translucent. But I was saying, it comes from the word, from the Latin calamarius, which basically means pertaining to a writing reed. Because the shape of the squid resembles that kind of writing thing, implement, and also of course you get squid ink. So that's where the Latin term came from, but the Latin term actually derived from an ancient Greek word, kalamos, which means reed or pen. So there you go. There's your history lesson. Geography lesson. Right, so we're going to give that a few more minutes and then we'll be ready to chuck in our squid. This is the bulk of the cooking time. The onion bit. We're not going to overcook the squid. We are just going to cook it a bit longer than we'd do if we fried it. I'm just going to turn that down a fraction. And at this point, I'm going to take these squid rings. I'm not going to tip it out because there's a bit of water in there. Like I said, there is a fair bit of onion in there. Probably went a little bit over. So it did say 2 medium onions. And what we're going to do is now we're just going to sort of toss that around for a couple of minutes to start that squid cooking. I was going to tell you something. What was it? Oh yeah, now we're going to shortly add some tomato puree. Now it was going to be passata, but somewhere along the lines it got a bit confusing doing the shop online, and the wife ordered puree instead of passata. Either that or she mistakenly put puree in instead of passata, but anyway, whatever. But ironically, his YouTube recipe said use passata. But if you look at his actual web page where he talks about adding the tomato, he says 2 great tomatoes. That would be like vomit making. We're not eating that. So we're not grating tomatoes in it, and instead we're going to smart puree because we don't have any passata. You're not putting a lot in, equivalent to 2 tomatoes, but there you go. Oh, I promised you a geography lesson, didn't I? Well, you've already sort of started it, because I told you this is the national dish of Ecuador. Oh, that Teresa always. So, at this point, I'm going to add the tomato. Okay, I think that will do for that. We're also going to add some freshly ground black pepper, and I want to add a little bit of salt. Now we just want to mix all that in together for a few minutes. Clean your sinuses out, that bloody turtle, I tell you. So Ecuador, different country to Spain, completely different area. But in Ecuador, it's part of what they would class as a hearty fish stew. So that word again, encebollados. In Ecuadorian, that's essentially fish stew. So it's not necessarily squid. Okay, it's usually made with fresh tuna or albacore or core, I don't know how you pronounce that one. Cassava root, tomatoes, onions, and parsley. I think it's parsley. Cilantro. I'm pretty sure that's parsley. Anyway, essentially what the word means is cooked with onions, which it certainly is in this case. Tell you what, we ain't going to get a lot to eat tonight. Plug all here. Should have done something to go with it aside. So this is more like a bloody tapas. For one. Right, that's how now had long enough. So let's get the final ingredients in there. At this point, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of that paprika. I'm going to add, now I'm going to filter or strain this, mainly because there's quite a lot of solid in this. So like I say, about 120 mils of vegetable broth. And you're going to want about the same again of white wine. That'll do. In that goes. They don't want to go through these now. And we're going to let that cook through, but what we are going to do at this point is add some saffron threads. It's a little bag on its own, okay? Generous pinch of saffron. That was a lot of saffron. Oh, coffee expensive. Get that before I knock it over. Now we're just going to mix all that in together. Okay. And we're now just going to let that stew away. That saffron needs breaking up, as it were. It's a big lump of it. Oh, pardon me, excuse me. I believe that's a mixture of the truthful and the white wine. Now you can see that the squid rings are starting to go white. Okay, as they're getting cooked. But now, we're just going to carry on cooking this. You can turn the heat up slightly because we're going to sort of start thickening this up a little bit and carry on cooking the squid. Like I said, in Spain you might cook that with potatoes or something like that, roasted potatoes. In Ecuador, with plantain, banana chips, bread. You can do it in Spain with bread, particularly if you can have it as tapas. In Ecuador they might add lime juice, chili sauce even. I'll put some of that chorizo on it. And they basically eat it at breakfast, at lunchtime, dinner, they don't care when. They love it, they'll eat it. Some restaurants actually don't actually, first thing they serve in the morning is this stuff. Well, Ecuadorian fish stew. And it's widely believed that it's an excellent hangover cure, especially if first thing in the morning or whatever time it is you get up, you not only eat a dish of this, but you accompany it with a nice bottle of cold pills. So, I'm just going to let this cook on a bit. I'm just going to chop some parsley with a bit of a garnish. Finish off my tapas. And then we'll be ready to try it. It's not really going to thicken that much unless we just reduce it down a bit, because obviously there's no sort of thickening agent in there. But I think we're just about ready to serve that up. Now, if you're saying, oh, I don't know about squid, is it healthy? It's very high in protein. 70%, approximately 70% is protein. It's also very rich in omega-3 and omega-6, and low in saturated fat. It is about 7%, oh no, sorry, about 5% fat. Okay. So it is a healthy thing to eat, although the problem is by the time you've cooked it like this, probably most of them vitamins are knackered. But anyway, good source of protein. People can have an allergy to calamari, or squid. It's exactly the same as the mollusk one. So if you've actually got a shellfish allergy, it's possible you could well have an allergy to squid, because it has the same stuff in it that causes the allergy in mollusks. Right, I've chopped my parsley. I've got my bowls ready. Just add a little bit of parsley to each. There we go. There he is. That bowl's up. I'll put it on a plate. there is our Spanish calamari in onion sauce. So let's give it a little taster. Get off there, parsley. So let's try a little bit of the sauce first. Okay, I've got a bit of onion, I've got a bit of garlic, I think. Looks like it might be a bit, why not? By the way, those who are more observant may have noticed a slight change during the progress of this presentation. And no, I'm not referring to the fact it's got darker outside. I'm talking about inside the room. If you can spot it, there's a prize. Because I won the lottery, people's postcode lottery minor prize, I'm going to give a prize away if you can spot what it is. Basically, yeah, I just mentioned you in dispatches. But anyway, there you go. What more do you want? Tomato-y, but definitely onion. Let's have a bit of squid and onion. Let's see if what he says about the way you cook it alters the way it is. Certainly not rubbery. I wouldn't say you necessarily get a lot of flavour of squid, because obviously you've got the tomato in there, overpoweringly the onions, but there you go. Your Spanish. Oh, I'm not going to try and say that word again. Your Spanish squid calamari in onion sauce. Better serve the wife now.